Nuclear terrorism and other radiological crimes represent a persistent and rising global threat. With hundreds of thousands of radioactive sources existing worldwide, the danger is concrete. At the same time, as more countries embark on peaceful nuclear power programs, the presence of more facilities and material increases both opportunity for criminal conduct and responsibility to confront this threat. To bring together policy, legal, and operational responses, the international community forged a powerful legal shield, ICSANT, the International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism.
The International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism is a key pillar of global nuclear security and a clear example of what can be achieved through a rules-based international system with the United Nations at its core. ICSANT remains the only legally binding international instrument that criminalizes malicious acts involving nuclear or other radioactive materials and provides the tools to bring perpetrators to justice. It helps states build strong legal frameworks and strengthens international cooperation, so there are no safe havens for those who would misuse such materials. In today's increasingly complex and volatile global security environment, the risk of nuclear and radiological attacks can no longer be treated as remote or hypothetical. Attempts to acquire, traffic, or deploy radioactive materials underscores the urgent need for vigilance, preparedness, and robust legal frameworks. In the context of evolving and multifaceted threats, the importance of ICSANT continues to grow. The European Union remains a strong and committed supporter of ICSANT, promoting its unionization and effective implementation in full respect of the rule of law and fundamental human rights. We therefore encourage all United Nations member states that have not yet done so to join this important convention. By doing so, you will help advance our shared goal of universalizing ICSANT and strengthening the global nuclear security architecture worldwide, as well as its culture and practice worldwide.
Adopted by consensus in April 2005, ICSANT addresses the threat of nuclear and other radioactive material falling into the wrong hands. Entered into force in July 2007, it remains a key legal pillar for nuclear security. The risk of nuclear and other radioactive material being used for terrorist or other criminal purposes is one of the greatest challenges of our time. All states need to establish robust and sustainable legal frameworks to counter this threat. ICSANT is an essential tool at the disposal of states to strengthen their criminal justice systems and effectively prevent and combat acts of nuclear terrorism. UNODC is helping countries to join and implement ICSANT. ICSANT was never meant to sit on a shelf. It was crafted to be applied, to deliver justice, foster cooperation, and serve as a preventative and deterrent tool. ICSANT goes beyond nuclear terrorism. It extends to all intentional and unlawful criminal conduct by non-state actors involving nuclear or other radioactive material. The origins of ICSANT trace back to the mid-1990s. Pursuant to the 1996 General Assembly Resolution on International Terrorism, an ad hoc committee was formed.
D'adopter le projet de résolution.
Negotiations formally began in 1998. The process spanned 8 sessions of the ad hoc committee and involved contributions from dozens of states and organizations. In the early 2000s, the urgency of preventing nuclear terrorism sharpened and momentum surged. In April 2005, after nearly a decade of negotiations, the United Nations General Assembly adopted ICSANT by consensus. ICSANT became the first treaty to criminalize the use or threat of use of radioactive material for terrorist or other criminal purposes.
This is an instrument that we have been working on very diligently for a number of decades to strengthen the nuclear security architecture and indeed to criminalize terrorism with use of nuclear or radiological materials in order to make our world a safer place.
The International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism of 13 April 2005 is a key component of the framework of 19 international legal instruments to prevent terrorist acts that have been developed since 1963.
ICSANT entered into force just 2 years later, on July 7, 2007, after the 22nd instrument of ratification was deposited. Since then, many states have become party to the Convention, reflecting a broad political will and a shared commitment to prevent nuclear terrorism.
The Convention also has a particular legitimacy because it was negotiated through the process of participatory and inclusive treaty making under the universal auspices of the General Assembly.
ICSANT is mainly a criminalization treaty. It requires states parties to establish as offenses in national law, inter alia, the intentional and unlawful possession of radioactive material, including nuclear material, with the intent to cause death or serious bodily injury or substantial damage to property or to the environment. It also requires a state's party to criminalize the use or threat of use of radioactive material or a device with the intent to cause death or serious bodily injury or substantial damage to property or to the environment. The Convention facilitates, as it was already mentioned, international cooperation in criminal matters by facilitating extradition, mutual legal assistance, and information exchange.
ICSANT is an international tool that helps countries build their legislation to criminalize nuclear security events.
ICSANT covers attempts, aiding and abetting, and even threats, closing legal loopholes that could allow alleged offenders to evade criminal accountability. States must also establish jurisdiction over the described offences, creating a system of quasi-universal jurisdiction in order to avoid the creation of safe havens, ensure offences under the Convention are deemed as extraditable offences among states parties, and crucially, cooperate through established legal frameworks which allow authorities to gather evidence, share intelligence, and bring suspects to justice across borders. This isn't just policy, it's the backbone of real-time global coordination. But laws don't implement themselves. Legal and technical capacity building is key. ICSANT's success depends on prosecutors, investigators, and judges being able to apply its provisions in real cases. Across regions, legal drafting workshops, mock trials, and other UNODC exercises are helping national experts put the Convention into practice.
It shows us as practitioners how important it is to be familiar with the ICSANT. It is important for you, if you are dealing with cases like this, that you at least understand the basic principles from the other systems as well.
Joining ICSANT isn't symbolic, it's strategic. It enables states to harmonise criminal legislations across different jurisdictions in line with global standards, access UNODC training, including legal drafting and technical assistance for criminal justice officials and all other relevant stakeholders, build confidence for cross-border cooperation in criminal matters, fulfill obligations under relevant UN Security Council resolutions, strengthen nuclear security and emergency preparedness protocols. ICSANT also supports states in building the legal and institutional frameworks needed to prevent, to investigate, and prosecute nuclear terrorism and related crimes. Through its implementation, countries gain tools to close jurisdictional gaps, establish clear investigatory mandates, and enable more effective international, regional, and bilateral cooperation. Worldwide, UNODC has assisted countries with updating penal codes, developing new emergency response plans, and strengthening prosecutorial coordination. UNODC helps states become party to it and provides technical, operational, and legislative assistance on its implementation. UNODC has assisted over 100 states and trained thousands of criminal justice, law enforcement, and frontline officers on the implementation of the Convention.
We assist our member states to draft or review their national counterterrorism legislation in order to bring it in line with the key obligations and requirements set forth by ICSANT as well as by other international legal instruments against terrorism.
We are in a very difficult times in terms of nuclear weapons and terrorism, and being party to instruments that fight nuclear terrorism could be crucial because international law is directly applicable in countries that are party to the convention, so it's extremely important. In UNODC, they are the secretariat for the ICSANT Convention.
The mock trial was critically important to help all of us as practitioners, whether we're prosecutors like myself or law enforcement agents or forensic experts, to understand how the criminal provisions and other provisions of ICSANT operate in practice.
Nuclear material and radioactive material is very new to my country, so we do not have much of it, but I understand the importance of ICSANT in that countries with little to no legal frameworks relating to nuclear terrorism are vulnerable to incidents of radioactive material and nuclear material as well. So I think ratifying or acceding to the convention would be beneficial as it allows greater international cooperation and also greater protection.
Security without rights is fragile. In addressing the threat of nuclear terrorism, ICSANT gives states powerful tools, but it also reminds them of their limits. Every measure taken must respect human dignity, protect fundamental freedoms, and uphold the rule of law, because justice that ignores rights isn't justice. ICSANT must be implemented in compliance with international human rights. That means without compromising on due process, fair trial, or the rule of law.
The international community has long recognized that effective counterterrorism efforts must be grounded on the respect for human rights and the rule of law. The UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy actually identifies violations of the rule of law and human rights among the conditions conducive to the spread of terrorism, and emphasizes that effective counterterrorism measures and the protection of human rights are not conflicting goals, but complementary and mutually reinforcing.
The offences in the Nuclear Terrorism Convention and its obligations of prevention and suppression and cooperation play an important role in protecting the right to life. The Convention's offences are carefully and precisely drafted, both as regards their physical and mental elements, and the drafting benefited from relevant experts from a variety of the world's legal systems. The offences broadly comply with the principle of legality under Article 15 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which requires criminal offences to be defined with sufficient clarity and specificity.
ICSANT can only be as strong as its membership. Universal adherence means a world without loopholes, where no perpetrator, no matter where, can evade criminal accountability. The Convention is a bridge between legal systems. It not only supports national security, but helps building global trust and international cooperation.
Nuclear terrorism has no boundaries. It's a global problem. No country is aloof from the harmful effects of nuclear terrorism. So all the countries should unite together and generate their international cooperation in order to fight against nuclear terrorism and ensure a safer and peaceful world.
The higher the number of states parties, the lower the risk that gaps appear, gaps that terrorists and other criminals can exploit. Universal adherence closes those gaps. It ensures that no matter where an offence is planned, attempted, or committed, there is a legal framework in place to prevent it or respond to it, swiftly, decisively, and in cooperation with the global community.
For small countries, the international law is of greatest importance. Having in place international legal instruments is something that we can account to and look forward if something happens.
ICSANT is an important part of the legal framework aimed at combating the threat of nuclear terrorism.
Crime adapts, so must our response. ICSANT is not just a treaty, it's a global legal shield against radiological crimes. It offers the tools to address new and emerging threats. UNODC calls on all states that have not yet done so to adhere to this convention and reiterates its willingness to assist them in this regard. UNODC will also continue to provide tailor-made technical and legislative assistance to all states parties in order to support the effective implementation of this key legal instrument.